All right. Hello and good afternoon. It is Tuesday the 19th, and we are experiencing some things in our country and our world right now. Unless you have been dead asleep, you have noticed. Um, it's funny. I listened to a couple of other Torah discussions throughout the week, different channels. One of my favorites is the Parable of the Vineyard with Adam Fink, and today he said something that really resonated with me and something I've thought for many weeks now as things have been getting interesting. um, One of the things that he said was just, it's one thing to know what's going on in the world, and I don't think we should be ignorant, obviously, as believers. But the most important thing, and the thing that we have to remember, is that our preparation is knowing the Word. And God moves in cycles, and He never does anything um, just once, honestly. He may do it in a little different fashion, but justice and judgment of the wicked are always His end game, and vindication for those who are living in His will. So it makes me excited. At the same time, it makes me feel a little bit sad. Reading the Torah portions this week um, has been a little bit emotional for me, because if you have read from starting in Exodus 10, you've understood that there's some serious judgment coming. And the plagues began in last week's portion, and they started out with the water turning to blood, the plague of frogs, the plague of lice or gnats, the plague of flies, and hail. And we ended with hail, I believe, yeah. And it took out the flax and barley, which that's very prophetic. And if you know anything about end times prophecy and end times happenings, Exodus is a blueprint for what we are going to and have been experiencing. So the flax and barley harvests were destroyed first, because the barley was in the ear. So we know that this was in springtime, when harvest time was upon them. They had planted and they were reaping. And the flax was in bloom, but the wheat and the spelt were not destroyed because they ripen later on. Okay? Biblically, prophetically, the Lord actually speaks to this. There is a barley harvest. There's a first and second kind of exodus. There's been repeatedly been exoduses throughout the Old and New Testament. God's children going into slavery and into exile and assimilating into the nations, and then being delivered, and God showing His hand on His people and delivering them and bringing them back into His kingdom reign. And so that's about to happen in our earth, I can assure you, just based on the fact that the Torah portions are meant to line up to world events. It's not an accident. And the more I'm reading them, the more I'm seeing that this is not any sort of coincidence. So before I get into chapter 10, I just want to talk a little bit about slavery, which I know is a touchy subject, because we have a country that was essentially built a little bit on the backs of slavery. And there has been an emancipation that has taken place. And then we had, of course, the civil rights movement. And I just want to talk about slavery, though, in a context that a lot of people don't see and don't want to talk about. I do believe that we are living in slavery. I don't want to belittle or offend anybody at all, but we do need to open our eyes. Okay, with the Social Security system, with certain taxes. There have been years where people have literally paid 40 to 50% of their hard-earned income in taxes to the government, and our government is not using those funds ethically. And so, truly, we are enslaved. Now, I know there are levels and there are severities. I'm not saying that anything is as severe as what the Hebrews were going through during the Exodus portions, but we have to understand that we are under a Babylonian system, and it is not God's way. It's not His kingdom that we are enslaved and living under. Part of what I mentioned last week in the book of Jasher, when the Israelites began to multiply, the sons of Jacob began to expand in Goshen. The Egyptians began to plot against them and to enslave them. And what they did was they offered them employment. And they were enslaved by being employees. So we need to wake up and realize, if you can't live without your job, if you got fired today and you would starve, then you are serving mammon or money, and you are not able to fully serve the Lord. If you told your boss, I need March 27th through April 4th off, I'm not going to work, I'm going to celebrate Passover, I need the Sabbath off, because that is God's command to me in His instructions in His Torah, and you know that you would be fired, you are a slave. So, we don't want to admit or see it that way, but we are enslaved as a people to a mindset and to a way of life that has entrapped us. And then in order to survive, we have to depend upon that. And so we are, as a family, earnestly seeking the Lord and trying to break free from that. Because we don't believe that that is His will for our lives. And so I believe as a nation, we're about to enter into a time where people are going to have to make that choice. So, yes, that's my little. I want y'all to see before I start to read how beautiful our little land is. I'm sitting here at our picnic table in the backyard, but this is my view, and video does not do it justice, but it's very, very pretty out here in Bandera, Texas. All right, so we are on Parashat Bo, B-O, and we're continuing with the plagues. Sorry, it gets loud out here sometimes with vehicles and stuff. Adonai said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, because I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I might show these my signs in their midst. So let's remember, if things don't seem to be moving the way we think they should, God's hand is still in it, because He's going to show His signs and wonders. And so you may tell your son and your grandchildren that what I have done in Egypt. So this was another generational blessing. He was saying, I'm going to pass down some stuff, and we are still benefiting from that, by the way, as well as my signs that I did among them, so that you may know. So this was a threefold purpose, right? That I'm Adonai. He wanted to show His signs in the midst of the Egyptians, because many of them came actually to the Lord. He wanted to show His signs as a testimony to future generations, and He wanted to show His signs among us, among Moses. He said, this is for you as well as it is for all the other people. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, verse 3, and said to him, this is what Adonai, the God of the Hebrews, says, how long would you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so they may serve me. And remember, they had asked to take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to observe Passover, which He kept them for a long time and prohibited them from being able to do so. So they were actually still in Egypt during Passover. Or else if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your borders, and they will cover the face of the earth, so that no one will be able to see the ground. They will eat the remainder of what escaped, whatever is left from the hail, and eat every tree that grows for you out in the field. So I'm wondering if, because it doesn't give a time span after the hail, I'm wondering if the barley and the flax were ruined, and then God allowed time for the wheat and the spelt to bud and to grow, and now He's going to take that away. So, whatever's left from the hail, and they will eat every tree that grows for you out in the field. Your houses will be filled, as well as the houses, as will the houses of all your servants, and the houses of the Egyptians, as neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen since the day they were on earth until today. Then he turned and went out from Pharaoh. Okay, so this was Pharaoh's warning. It always starts with a warning. God doesn't do anything without warning people. He gives them a chance to repent. Just want to put that out there. Okay, he's not evil, and he's not a person in the sense of a human being, because we do things out of spite. God does things for a major, big picture purpose. Okay. Pharaoh's servants said to him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Send them in so that they may serve Adonai their God. Don't you realize that Egypt is being destroyed?" So Moses and Aaron were brought to Pharaoh again. So they came back before any locusts had descended. Go serve your God, he said. Who will be going? So he's saying, go, but wait, who are you going to take? There's always conditions. Moses answered, we will go with our young and our elderly, our sons and daughters, and we will go with our flocks and our herds, for we must have Adonai's feast for him. Okay? This was literally everything that was under their leadership had to be there. But he said to them, so may Adonai be with you if I ever let you go with your little ones. Very interesting passage. The children were the inheritance. They were the future. He was not about to let them leave. So this is where the judgment comes back upon him very quickly. See clearly now, evil is in your face. He's saying you have an evil purpose. You want to rob us of our slaves. Not so. Go now, the men only, and serve Adonai, for that is what you are seeking. And then they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. Then Adonai said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, so they may come up onto Egypt and eat every plant in the land, everything that the hail has left. So Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and Adonai brought an east wind over the land all that day and all night. When it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. The locusts came up over the land of Egypt and rested on the entire territory of Egypt, so dense that there was nothing like it before them, nor will there ever be again. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they ate every plant in the land and all the fruit from the trees that the hail had left. No green thing remained, not a tree or plant on the field throughout the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh quickly called for Moses and Aaron and said, I have sinned against Adonai. Second admission of guilt from him. Now forgive my sin only this once, please. So pray to Adonai your God, so that he would take this death away from me. At this point, if I were Pharaoh, I'd be a little worried about a coup. Your people, they respect you, but up to what point are they going to follow this nonsense as you deny the one true God? So, little backstory too. If you read the book of Jasher, they go into some detail. When Moses approaches Pharaoh for the first time to ask for their freedom, he says, I don't know your God, because remember, Yahweh said to Moses, I made myself known as El Shaddai to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, but I am making myself known as Yahuwah, Yahweh, Jehovah, however you want to say it. I am revealing my actual name to you and through you. So when he went to Pharaoh in the book of Jasher, it says, Yahweh said, let us go. And he said, I don't know who Yahweh is. I've never heard that name before. And that was true. And So he began to go, he had them bring the books of records from all of ancient Egypt to him. All his men, they brought these books because he said, I want to look for his name and see if he's been mentioned. Because in the books of the kings is what they were called, or the books of the angels, which whole other story there. He brought them. He was brought the books, and he was looking for the name of Yahweh, and he couldn't find it. So he was very adamantly confused as to who this new God was. And so when Moses explains to him, he made the heaven, he made the earth, he made the land and the sea, he made every river, he made the fish, he made the birds, he made every creeping animal, and he made you, and he will bring you back to the dust where he created you when it's your time. And Pharaoh was, this is the whole reason that this man continues to harden his heart, because he turned around and said, no, I made my river. These ancient Egyptian kings believed that because they were descendants of some hybrids, they believed that they really did create the earth. They were a counterfeit, and an antichrist figure in the earth. And so the greatest struggle that's going on here that we've ever seen scripturally up to this point is because he is trying to prove that he is God, and that he made the heavens and the earth, and that he has all power and authority over everything that moves and lives and has being. So there is a reason for the power struggle here, guys, and it's not just, well, I'm king and I want everybody to love me. It's, I literally believe that I'm God, and they did. And so anyway, if you read the book of Joshua, it goes into a lot more detail. I highly recommend it, and I say it every week, but I'm going to keep saying it. Targums, the Sefer has actually everything, all the extra biblical history books. I love it. I want to get it. That's my next big purchase. It's not cheap, but it's worth it, because if you were to buy all those books separately, it would be a lot of money, and it's actually a good deal. So anyway, verse 18, chapter 10. So he went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Adonai, and then Adonai turned the wind from the west very strong and carried off the locusts and drove them into the Sea of Reeds. Not one locust remained in all the territory of Egypt, but Adonai hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the sons of Israel go. Then Adonai said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven, and there will be darkness over the land of Egypt. Do y'all remember when Joe Biden got up right after his victory was announced, and he said we were going to go into 10 days of darkness, or dark winter, and this thing has continued to perpetuate? So this is a very interesting timing, because this is the plague that is right before the final plague, okay? Adonai said, stretch your hand toward heaven, there will be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness that may be felt. Okay, so this is intense. This is like an actual plague of darkness. Here, Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. They could not see one another, nor anyone else rise from his place for 3 days. Yet all of Bnei Israel had light within their dwellings. If this is not the most prophetic scripture for our time, there is going to come, and it's very soon, a darkness over our nation and our world, and we are going to be the light. There is going to be an actual physical and spiritual drawing to the God of Israel via his people, okay? Listen to this. This is amazing. They had light in their dwellings. Pharaoh called Moses and said, go serve Adonai. Only let your flocks and herds remain. Your little ones can go with you. So now he's making a plea bargain. He's saying, okay, fine, take your kids, but leave your flocks and herds. But Moses said, you must also put sacrifices and burnt offerings into our hand, and then we will do it for Adonai our God. Our cattle must also go with us. Not a hoof may be left behind. We must take from them to serve Adonai our God. We ourselves will not know how we will serve him until we arrive there. So they hadn't been given specific instructions. But Adonai hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was unwilling to let them go. So Pharaoh said to him, "Go away from me, and take heed that you never see my face again, because on the day you do, you will die." "Right," Moses said. "You said it. May I never see your face again." I kind of like the sarcasm that I'm picking up there. Just saying. All right, chapter 11. Now Adonai had said to Moses, "I will bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will surely thrust you out altogether from here. Speak now into the ears of the people of Israel, and let every man," so it was actually the women. I don't know why it says man in my translation, because he had prophesied to Moses that it would be the women, "from his neighbor, and every woman from her neighbor for articles of silver and gold." Adonai gave the people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. Yeah, you think the whole world is watching this happen, and they're like, "Yeah, no, you can have whatever you want. Your God is real." So I don't think we understand the magnitude of how many people actually left their own country to follow Adonai, that were once Egyptians. And this is the beautiful part of all of this. He gave them favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. Indeed, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants and in the eyes of the people. So Moses said, "This is what Adonai says. At around midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt will die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh sitting on his throne to the firstborn of the maidservants behind the mill, along with the firstborn cattle. There will be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, the likes of which has never been heard, has never been, before, nor will ever be again. But not so much as a dog will growl against any of Bnei Israel, neither man or beast." So again, no one's going to be crying in Israel, in their territory. "So that you may know that Adonai makes a distinction between the Egyptians and Israel." This keeps getting said over and over and over. We need to hear it. "All these servants of yours will come down to me and bow down to me, saying, 'Get out,' and all the people who follow you." After that, so all the people who follow you doesn't just mean the sons and daughters of Israel. It means everybody who's going to be following Yahweh. It's beautiful. After that, it's also terrifying. After that, I will go. Then he went out from Pharaoh hot with anger. Adonai had said to Moses, "Pharaoh will not listen to you, so that my wonders will be multiplied in the land of Egypt." So Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, yet Adonai hardened Pharaoh's heart, so he did not let Bnei Israel go out of his land. Now Adonai spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this is chapter 12, the Passover. I'm going to go ahead and pause here and start a part 2, because at about 25 minutes it kicks me out of YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and be proactive and do that, and I will be back with part 2.